I have a mission statement for my ministry, and it's twofold. And the first side of that is that I want to point the non-believer to the truth. I want to point them to God. And the other side of that is I want to challenge the believer in his or her walk with Christ. And so every book is going to have that element. No matter what it is that I write, it will always have that, it will fulfill that purpose statement, because I feel like that's what God has called me to do. So redemption is a huge piece of the puzzle in every book, and hope is a very large piece in each book. And yes, these books are, a lot of people would call them thrillers because they're very high action suspense. And yes, it's true to life, and it's creepy, and it's hard to imagine that all of this could actually happen, but it can. And I know that a lot of people are a little bit freaked out, but I think the best thing that we grab onto through this is the fact that God is still God, and He is in control, and our faith needs to be in Him. So in book 1, the heroine comes to know the Lord because she's had a horrible past, and we find that out, through the book. She's had some really awful things that have happened to her. And in book 2, the hero and the heroine in book 2 really have to have a journey of faith, understanding that their faith has to be completely in God and not in their own abilities, not what they can do, because one is a cyber expert and one is with the ABI, which is the Alaska Bureau of Investigation. So I think all of us in our lives do this. We tend to have expertise in an area. Mm-hmm. Like me, I was raised in music. Music was my life. I had a scholarship to Juilliard. I thought that was what God was going to do with me my entire life, and yet He had a different plan, right? But it's very easy for me to go back and rely on those skills whenever I perform, whenever I'm leading worship, any of that, rather than realizing that this is God's work, and let me completely step into the fact that He is doing this, and I'm going to let Him work through me rather than me relying on my own self and on my own knowledge. Mm.
Well, Kimberley, let's talk just a bit about your background. As you mentioned, mm-hmm. You're part of your calling is to actually do music. Yes. And obviously God is using you and has gifted you in the area of writing. People may be familiar with your family. You mm-hmm. mentioned that your daughter married someone who is involved in this whole cyber area. Yes. For the military. People may know your entire family as a result of the program Extreme Makeover.
Yes.
So tell me about how that came to be.
Well, actually, we were, through the entire 10 seasons, I believe, that they had, we were the most nominated family out of any of their shows. And what's really funny is we had no idea. And we had been going around the country. I had been sharing our story, and our story was all about grabbing on to God's joy through life trials, because our daughter mm-hmm. has a really rare nerve disorder. And when she was finally diagnosed, it took years, but when they finally diagnosed her, she was the only child alive in the world that had this specific disorder. And now there's about 30, 35 families that we know of throughout the world. And we've been connected through a lot of the different shows that we have been on. We've been on a lot of different national TV shows. And so Extreme Makeover came in and they built us a house because all of these people that had heard us tell our story over the years at churches had sent in nominations for us. So when the producer called me, she said, well, have you seen the show? And I said, well, no. I said, but I promise I'll watch Extreme Makeover next week. So it was a wonderful experience what God did through that. And so when the bus pulled up with Ty Pennington, I think we were all just a little bit blown away. But they built us what we call a Kayla-friendly house. Kayla is our daughter. She doesn't sweat. She doesn't feel pain unless it's 25 to 30 times the intensity you and I would feel. And so we had a very controlled environment, for her. And through that, God did a lot of even bigger and better things that came out of Extreme Makeover. And so our story went very, very wide. And it was wonderful to see how many people wrote in through our website. So when the show aired the very first time, 15 million people watched it, Extreme Makeover on ABC. And 100,000 or so emails came in through the website. And about 8,000 of those all had the same question. And it was, there's something different about your family. What is it? So we were able to share our faith in a really real way.